Hey everybody, Economic Ninja here. I hope you're doing great. That doesn't even work right now. Let me get a little coffee. All right, we're going to be talking about JP Morgan. An interesting, is it a warning? Is it not? It is a warning. And it's very interesting because they are some of the smartest people on the street. Why? Because they have your data. They are the largest bank in the country. They are diving into all kinds of data. As a matter of fact, it's been in the news just recently that they just announced that they, in their opinion, professional opinion, the consumer is now tapped. The average American has drained all of their savings. All of the money that people were given during the pandemic, some of it went into people's savings account is now gone. It is over. The consumer's tapped. And it's interesting because a month ago, they came out with a story saying, an announcement saying, consumers not tapped yet. They're expecting it to happen into the fall. That's when they were expecting it to happen. And ironically, now they're coming out with that information saying it's done, it's over. Well, I found another warning, and it's very telling of what's happening in America right now. You see, when 2006 was happening, prior to the '08 crash, when everybody figured it out, one thing people were doing, and how I knew we were crashing, was because the usage of home equity lines of credit were exploding. And I was talking to lenders, and they were telling me that so many people are tapping into it. You should do this. It's a great idea. And it wasn't a great idea. Well, it was prolonging the crash. It was the evidence the crash had happened, because the crash means that people just don't have the money and they're having to find money, right? I don't look at a crash as the turning down of the stock market numbers. That is the last thing that happens. If you're looking for that and going, Ninja, the crash hasn't happened yet, you're going to be very seriously fooled, because what will happen is, just like in 2008, everybody said as the stock market was crashing down, you know what they all said? Oh yeah, we saw this coming. No, you didn't. You're an idiot. You didn't see it. You want to know why you didn't see it? Is because if you would have saw it back then, you would have done something about it. You would not have gotten deeper into debt. You wouldn't have done a lot of the things you did, right? Now, I'm not talking to you, the listener, but I'm talking to the person that would say those kind of things to me in 2008. And still today, I see tons of comments. You're wrong. Look at where the stock market is. I'm like, well, you're a simpleton. I don't know what to tell you, and that's just the truth of the matter. So what was happening back then is people were diving into their home equity. Well, they're doing that now, and I'll start doing some videos about it soon. But we already know that they're diving into their credit cards, because credit card debt is exploding right now. And now one more signal that the end is nigh is that the average person's savings accounts drained to nothing. So this warning that I'm about to tell you with JP Morgan, I think is very telling. And this is another way that people are tapping into money they have that they should not be tapping into. But I'm also going to share some stories about myself and what I did, okay? This isn't financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm an investor. And I'm going to talk about something I did that has to do with the story. All right, here we go. So this story comes out of, I'm sorry, this is just going to be like a chill live session. This comes out of Yahoo Finance. It's entitled, Why JP Morgan Says to Avoid Withdrawing This Much from Your Retirement Accounts. Now, just upon thinking about that, why would they need to come out with a story? Well, I'll tell you, it's because they are starting to pull money out of their savings accounts, their retirement accounts. Let me know down below if you're one of the people that are, and I'm not here to judge you. And I'm going to tell you a story of why I did it a long time ago. JP Morgan Chase says ongoing inflation and an outlook for sharply lower returns for investors means that retirees should toss the long-standing 4% rule. That's the rule that says retirees can safely draw down their savings by 4% per year without having to worry that they'll run out of funds before they die. Failure to toss this rule could mean having to cut back on your spending or even seeing your savings disappear. This is really interesting to me. Instead, the big bank advises drawing down no more than 2% or 3% of your nest egg each year. Consider working with a financial advisor as you plan for a worry-free retirement. Now, I'm going to tell you on face value right now, just reading that, we already know a handful of things are going on right now in the banking sector. First off, M2 money supply is contracting. That means people are withdrawing money from their accounts, or cash accounts, like savings account, checking accounts, things like that. Cashier's checks, all of that equates for M2 money supply. We know that's happening. We know that people are raising credit card debt, right? In turn, as credit card debt goes up, minimum payments go up, albeit at a small rate. That's more money that's got to go into that. Now, normally, like they say here, the 4% rule means that as you pull 4% out of your savings, you should have enough for the rest of your life. Why would they tell you to pull less out? Well, we've seen companies like Bank of America, Brian Moynihan, say that if he is forced to hold on to 2% more of your deposits in Bank of America, that he believes that it will become very difficult for Bank of America, the second largest bank in the country, to compete with other world banks on the world banking stage. Starting to put all this stuff together, and it looks like the banks are becoming very fearful because of the amount of money being withdrawn from their banks. Let me ask you this. Type one down in the comment section in the last year or two if you've pulled money out of your bank because either A, you don't trust the bank, and actually you do like 1A, or 1B, if it's because you see that instead of having your money in the bank, you could hold it somewhere else at get a better rate of return. Because quite frankly, keeping your money in the bank doesn't really make any money at all, right? So it says here, what is the 4% rule? The 4% rule was articulated in 1994 by financial planner Bill Bengen. It calls for spending 4% of your retirement savings in the first year of your retirement and then adjusting that percentage each year for inflation. Well, now think about this. If you are having to pull money out because of inflation right now, adjusting for inflation, I'm pretty sure you don't agree with the government inflation numbers, right? Let me know what you think about the government inflation numbers. If you think they're crap, type crap. That's what I'd be typing right now. Um, but inflation is a lot more than 3%, 4%, even 5% right now. So there are a lot of people that are getting tapped and they're having to tap into the only money they have right now, and that's retirement accounts. I know people that are tapping into retirement accounts prior to retiring right now because they're trying to either pay off debt because the payments are getting too exorbitant because of adjustable rate, not mortgages, but adjustable rates. Um, or they're seeing an opportunity, and that's what's scary too. I saw somebody just tap into their retirement savings before they're retired, took the 10% hit because the penalty, because they saw an opportunity in real estate. That's scary. That is some scary stuff right there. It says right here, when adjusting for inflation, doing that when you're adjusting, you may need to pull out more than 4%. Doing that would keep retirees from running out of money in every 30-year period since 1926, when the economic conditions were at their worst. Now, that is true. 1926 economic conditions were at their worst, which led to the crash of 29. Remember those numbers. He says right here, in 1926, economic conditions were at their worst. But the stock market crash didn't actually come until 1929 and subsequent depression after that. Well, that's where we're at right now. And now we're just waiting for the stock market to roll over. And when that happens, it's going to be pretty wild ride. And so the problem is that we haven't seen inflation like this since the late 70s. And I believe that, quite frankly, we're going to see inflation worse in the late 70s. And the reason why is because we're losing control of the dollar. We're losing the control, the ability to print recklessly and send it overseas to countries that will buy those dollars in order to be able to buy oil, natural gas, and other commodities. Those countries have now stopped doing that, and they're doing business in either their own currencies or currencies like the yuan. This is a very serious time. And I believe what's going to happen with a lot of retirees or people that have a retirement account, they're going to be tapping this money and putting it into just average everyday expenditures, or um, paying down debt that they got out of control. And before you know it, everything's going to come crashing down around them, and they're not going to have that life raft. Now it says here, and let me go into this. This is what JP Morgan says to do instead. Given the degree of variability variability in retirees' spending habits and investment results, JP Morgan offered 6 factors to weigh as you develop and withdraw a withdrawal strategy that is tailor-made for you. You got to consider tax rates. What's your combined federal, state, and local tax rate? Now remember, when people are taking money out of their retirement accounts prior to the legal age of retirement, as far as the monetary laws, you're getting hit with a 10% fine. Now, interesting enough, that 10% fine was waived during COVID. And I did know some people that took advantage of that, took that money out and put it into precious metals. It now bodes really well for them on a percentage basis because they were paying downwards of like $14 an ounce for silver, and I want to say like 16 or $1,500 for gold. And on a percentage basis, they've made a really good clip of money compared to where their government retirement or their company's pension, their 401k was at the time, even with this increase in the stock market. They said financial commitments. Do you aim to leave a legacy or benefit your descendants? Now it's interesting because so many people think a legacy is the stuff that you leave. But the question is, how much are you leaving them? Are you leaving them homes with a lot of debt on them? And when you die, are you on the downswing of a housing correction? Housing corrections happen every 7 to 10 years. Most people don't realize that. There was a housing correction in 2015 that most people don't realize. Oh, by the way, I'll put some more 80% off links to the real estate crash course, but also the Auto Trader Pro class that I'm putting out right now. It's the pre-filming discount. I'll put those below. They talk about healthcare expenses, life partner's age, and portfolio composition. But here's the point: I don't think that that is really going to matter in the grand scheme of things. Now, let me talk about what I did, and I do not suggest any of you do this. I'm extremely risk on. When I study something and I invest in something, I'm investing on the fundamentals, and I invested in things like precious metals and crypto a long time ago. And I actually took my retirement out a long time ago. And I actually, on some of it, took the 10% hit and I purchased those. Now, when I did, at first it was a little rough, it was nerve wracking, and then it exploded. But here's the thing: I've been invested in those asset classes for a very long time. And usually, when people finally pull the trigger and they jump into something, it's usually because they're watching whatever asset class they're buying going up and they experience FOMO. And I've experienced FOMO so many times. That's why I always lost in the stock market when I was younger, because I did not know how to control my emotions and understand trading cycles, volume patterns, and things like that. Um, it wasn't really until I got involved with precious metals and crypto that I was able to control my my breathing a little bit and understand those cycles. And then also not going in all at once. I weighted in. I call dollar cost averaged. So there were days I actually learned how to get excited when something I bought on fundamentals went down in price. And even though I'd already bought it, it was because now I'm going to buy the next block at a lower price. I was buying on fundamentals and I was looking at a long term um, plan, a long-term goal. And that bode very, very well for me, to the point where at some points I was able to take out, let's say with the explosion in crypto, I was able to sell some of that, buy another asset class. I was able to sell some precious metals, buy tractors and flip those. And after a while, I had so many pots of money that some would be exploding. So I'd take some out of there, put it into the one that I still believed in, even though it was underperforming at the time. And then that one would take off. Then I would take that and I would sell and go into the last one. And I did this almost like a swing trade all the way up, and it worked really well for me. But here's the problem: so many people tap into their retirement savings, and it's not for an investment, it's for everyday living expenses. And JP Morgan came out with this warning for a reason. And I believe the reason is because they haven't disclosed it yet, but they're seeing people pulling money out like gangbusters. They've already seen the consumer savings account go to nothing, and now they're coming out with this next warning. And if people squander away their retirement savings right now just to pay their bills because they racked up bills like with credit cards, of things they wanted and they couldn't wait for, or they bought a car on payments that they couldn't save up for because they just were, I gotta have it right now. I know so many people that, I kid you not, you go to the car store, you can't even look. It's like, I want that. I'm gonna go buy it. And you're like, holy cow. And the car salesman just fiend on that emotion right there. Um, if you're tapping your retirement to pay back bad decisions, you're going to absolutely fail and crater in this next collapse. And that's really the message I want to get across. Look, I want to thank you all for coming out because I know it's super early for most of you. What time is it right now where you're at when you're watching this? Because here, I'll show you my view right now. Incredible storm, windstorm all night last night. It was crazy. But anyway, just want to share that with you. I hope you got something out of this. I think this is going to turn into something bigger in the next 8 weeks. We're going to see more and more revelations about how many people are actually pulling out money out of their retirement accounts, and they're not putting it into things that are good. They're just paying off bad decisions. All right, I hope you got something out of this. The Economic Ninja is out.